So I'd like to invite Matt Clark from Source Labs onto the stage, please, who's going to be delivering a session on a game dev's journey into a mobile dev ops toolchain. So yeah, please, Matt, take it away.
All right, how's everyone doing today?
Good.
Right on, right on. So this is basically made for game devs. So if you're not a game dev or you're just not interested in this stuff, you're not in the right place. So anyways, I'm Matt Clark. This is Sauce Labs. I work for Sauce Labs. This talk is called Succeed by Failing, a game dev's journey into the mobile DevOps toolchain, which is kind of a mouthful. I like to start at the beginning with a quote. At the end of the day, people won't remember what you said or did. They will remember how you made them feel. It's kind of an EQ statement, which is like, I want you to come away from this feeling like your time is valued. I spent 5 years, a little bit more, making a game using Unreal Engine and 3, basically, so it was a while ago. And I want you to kind of take those lessons away and hopefully take some of those 5 years and the 20 minutes we have and gain some knowledge there that helps you out moving that forward. So who we are, Sauce Labs is a DevOps toolchain company. We have real devices. We have Backtrace, which I'm going to go into depth on. We have emulators and simulators. We don't do testing, but basically we provide all the tools for you to test your games to make sure that you can have less errors and crashes. And this is a talk about how to fail often and right. So we'll kind of go over the differences. This is what I hope you take away from this talk. Our vision, Sauce Labs wants to deliver digital confidence. In a world that relies on code, Sauce Labs strives to make it work for everyone, everywhere, and every time. This is digital confidence. So that's our little thing. So I started out in banking. I was a professional services engineer implementation, and I did online stuff. So how do you start from this sort of thing and go to full three-dimensional from 2D? So I'm going to kind of go over that. You're going to do some things right, and you're going to do some things right. Or wrong. Hopefully you'll just do right and right. But as far as making a game, like right here, you can see that I've done in Blender the UV maps, and then I have a trophy room where, like, as you begin to catch fish in my game, the trophies start appearing on the wall, and you can choose them, and there's like a little book. And then I've included a couple level designs that I've done, and I've shown you like a fish that you've caught. I programmed the game. I did the height maps with USGS spatial data, so they reflect real places. And then I did all the art, I did all the rigging, all the animation, all the programming, all of the UI, everything. So that's why I kind of want to take that solo part. As a part of Sauce Labs, I get a 10,000-foot view of the largest companies in the world. We work 15 of the top 20 studios in the world. So it's been really exciting. A couple of the ones that I can mention are Roblox and Halfbrick. We have case studies in case you guys are interested. I also sometimes forget to mention this as an indie or whatever. We have a free dev tier, so you can get 25,000 errors into Backtrace for free and begin to monitor and go through some of the lessons that I wish I had when I created my game. So you do some things right. I feel like I did a lot of the event handling and programmatic animations and that stuff really right on that. This is right. This is Kismet. This is before Blueprints. I leveraged it to get through the game. And then you start doing some things wrong. So here is basically the idea of catching a fish in the game. So I come from the banking world, so I used to do this in a database, but I didn't have a database. So I did this, which you could imagine is problematic from a maintainability point of view, or even trying to sometimes troubleshoot it. So what do I wish that I had? I wish that, I'm up here as a part of this company representing the product because I believe in it. So there is no right way. Some of the benefits of failure, there's no right way. In the end, it's about succeeding, and at what level does it look like, but we can temper that a little bit, right? Learn. You can often learn that there are other better approaches. You grow as you fail. You hopefully learn from those mistakes, and you iterate on them. And this is really how innovation happens. People aren't afraid to take risks. Everything stays the same. Everything stays stale. All right, so failing the wrong way. These are the ones that I recommend you avoid. There's no sense in making the mistakes over and over again, right? Like, it's just stupid to do that. So if you fail to launch, we've seen a lot of titles that go through the process. Today, a lot of the titles are one of the things I've learned more. It's not about gut feeling. It's a mixture of, maybe. There's a lot of analytics that goes into games now. So there's a lot of data that's analyzed in terms of where players start and stop. But as you make a game, if you can't technically build the game, you have failed. So I don't suggest that you start off with a game mechanic or start off with a concept that doesn't have that sort of traction. Failure to capitalize. Having a game drop below 3 stars or having bad feedback from your player base, that will lose your players, and then you will fail to capitalize on all that time that you spent and invested in energy. And then failure to engage. If you don't market your game, you rely on viral marketing or other things, then you're just really, it's going to be very tough for you to succeed. So, it takes, from a solo dev's perspective, you not only just the dev part, you also have to have a business aspect where you engage in marketing and other things. Brand experience. So I'm going to kind of dive in the idea of what it means to fail and maybe not failing the right way, which is to say, if we're concerned about mobile, basically at this level where you see 3 stars, you're going to have a 92% conversion rate with your game. As it drops off, jumping to a 2-star game, it drops like your base, your conversion by 306%. In other words, at 90% over here, those conversions for 3 to 5-star games, you convert. But once it drops below that, that's 50% you start converting at. That's more the way I think of it than this stat here. But that means you have to put twice as much money for marketing. All right, so popular phrases with sentiment. I'm just going to highlight this and make it bigger. So what drives bad reviews? Every time, please fix, doesn't work, keep crashing. So these are the sort of fundamental things that will lose your player base and drop your ratings. All right, so the most frequent and impactful complaints, I'm going to highlight this again. Functional error number 1, app crashing number 3, and network problem number 4. These are the things that we want to help you solve. So failing the wrong way. Poor experiences, right? If the customer has a bad brand experience, 25% of those customers will never come back. They're gone. You'll never see them again. So we want to help prevent that. All right, so how do you fail the right way? Well, we're all software developers, so we iterate. You don't slow down. Continuous deployment, continuous integration. This has become the expectation in the industry. Shifting left and shifting right. What does that mean in this continuous integration path? That means that while you're testing your game as much as you can up front, while it's in production as well, you have a fast solution that runs in the background to get those errors that are happening in production and crashes before they affect the rest of your player base and get them solved in real time. And then regression testing. Don't make the same mistakes twice. All right, so this is kind of my product piece here, where I'm going to kind of just dive into what Backtrace does a little bit. So what we basically do is you can stop, think about us as like the mean time detection to an error and the resolution to a crash. We compress that time cycle by upwards of 70%. So instead of spending hundreds of hours looking through log files, we basically have this ability to capture and prioritize and then resolve the issues. So that below mean time to detection is the little stat, the little mean time to thing on the resolve part is the mean time to resolution. So, all right, this is the actual product. We have an analytics shot where you can actually see over time how your releases are doing. So, and crash-free and error metrics at the top. So you can see that these are good stats, 98% error-free users, 94% with the error-free application launches. I've seen this go to 50%. That means you have a problem. And that means you need to solve it because you're going to lose players. Failing the right way. So what is it? How do we do this for you? So how do we basically cut that mean time to detection resolution? We have over here, we have a fingerprint. You can see that this error has been happened 2,180 times. So instead of having to sort through that error 2,180 times, we fingerprint it with our heuristic engine, a little bit of machine learning, and we allow you to open up Jira tickets, we allow you to do Slack, we allow you to do any sort of integration that you want, but basically we're built to scale and ingest errors in mass. Every platform, every console, every operating system, every Android, every programming language, we have an SDK or integration for you. So we can help you out and you can get an entire snapshot and we provide it in one portal for you to basically do this. So not only do we scale, one of our other value propositions, we help you organize and bring speed to what you do. All right, so failing the right way, we slice and dice, right? So we can slice according to Switch, Android, Mac OS, so you can actually start getting into your errors. So it's like sort of having like a 10,000-foot snapshot, and now you want to take a magnifying glass to it, zoom in on that error, understand where it's coming from, understanding what's important to you. So you can do it according to release channel, right? You can just sort by production. Only the errors that are in production and get rid of QA. so that you can actually look at that release, or you can sort by releases. All right. Now, beyond that ability to prioritize and capture, how do we resolve? We basically take this information, which comes to you as the developer. This is the faulting thread. This is the call stack. This is the log files, the screenshots. We even do videos. In this case, we've had a source code repo set up. We'll give you the line that your code is failing on for that particular error. So this is the speed that I want to like emphasize, that once you guys have that problem, in order to have that, keep those 4 and 5 star ratings, you want to basically bring this in right away, give this to the developer, and that's the kind of speed we're talking about. With inside of a crash, with inside of backtrace, it'll be inside of our system within 1 second. All right, so this is just kind of more about the call stack, desymbolication, and just a highlight of it. We also do breadcrumbs, like a little bit of information setting up to that. This is our attribute system. Oh, that's good, because I'm flying through this right now. This is our attribute system, and we basically have an extensible metadata. So anything that you want to bring into our system, so like if Unity comes in, we're a VSP partner of Unity, so we bring in like 300 pieces of attributes automatically, things like GPU, shaders, CPU, RAM total, everything that you'd want to know about what's going on in your player system. It is anonymized. We do have another tool that if you want to add even more sort of privacy information to it, that you can. But this attribute's extremely powerful. It lets you basically bring stuff into the system and then bring it out. If you want to export it to analytics or other things, that will allow you to do that. And you can add stuff in. So on your level of the code on the client, you can say something like, there's a green car and a red car and a finish line, and I want to get to know where those things are happening and when that's coming across. This sort of JSON serialization will let you know that, and you can add that to our system. And then the other thing that you can do with the extensible data is, then, unlike any of our competitors, we keep an object around for like 90 days. So instead of waiting for that error or crash or that thing you're interested in investigating into the future and waiting for it to happen, you can go back 90 days and see it into the past, because we keep that information there for you. It's extremely powerful. All right, so here's some pro tips on my end. These are things that I've learned from my game that as I developed it as well. So for the user interface, as things have moved, at least for me at that point, between like HD to 4K, I find vector graphics in all interfaces that I do to be superior to bitmap, because you don't have problems with pixelation. They have a lighter footprint. They're a little bit harder to use. SVG graphics, I did some work for Nike, and they're really concerned about brand, and everything was SVG graphics. Really crisp, really clear, very professional, can be difficult to use. So I use that for Scaleform for the 4K. Infinite loops, right? If you have some sort of loop in your game and it becomes infinite, your players are stuck. So at some point you want to basically find a way to eject them at some sort of, maybe possibly keep a count like past 10 and then say, nope, time to break this loop. Frame rates. Unless your game is like a competitive FPS shooter, I don't suggest that you run at 120, 140 frame rates. For me personally, I put some hard-coded time, not the best thing in there, but I did some delays, and I had a player who had a better machine than me for designing it, and he was running my game at like 220 FPS and was blowing it apart. The second I capped the frame rate to 60, the game runs beautifully and smooth. So really most players, unless you're a competitive FPS, it's really not necessary to have that sort of thing. And then keep it simple. If you divide by pi, you're not doing encryption. I use really, really simple math, right? So a computer can run like 1 billion calculations a second now. So if you keep things to booleans, zeros and ones, trues and falses, switches, you'll find that your game just books through the code and runs really, really fast. But by the time you decide to divide by something crazy, make your computer wait, that's going to kill your game and kill your speed. I've seen a lot of people be able to go in and create cameras, different corporations, and they'll try to like measure frame rates per that. I think just the idea of architecting your game simply, it actually is very powerful. So, all right. So that's fail gracefully. Fail often. Sorry, I read a little piece of this as I was moving through it. So what does that mean? What does fail often mean? This is the idea that, as you moving through it, you can iterate on what you're doing. So one of the things and lessons that I've learned is Unreal Engine, for those of you that are familiar, first of all, how many people in the audience use Unreal Engine? Cool. How many people use Unity? Awesome. How many people use a custom engine? Okay. So we support all those. If you're an indie developer, I suggest that you use an Unreal Engine or a Unity because you're getting so much out of the box. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. If we tend to see enterprise clients, the ones that use very, very large custom engines. I noticed with Unreal Engine that basically as you move from like 4.15 to 4.2 or to 5 or any of those things, one of the things that changed most dramatically in order for you to be able to move your game from that to level is programming. You ran into whole different physics systems, whole different animation systems. So if you do your art first, and this is for small people, right? Like small indie teams. You do your art first, then you're gonna be able to move that faster through the process. It will move to 4.2 to 4.27 without the friction that you have as moving your code base. All right, so once you have that idea of where you're at, you're gonna wanna harden your version. At some point, once you start programming, now's the point where you say, okay, we're no longer gonna move to 5. It's gonna be too problematic to go to those new systems like Niagara, and we're just gonna basically stay here and we're gonna make the game, we're committing to it, and this is what's happening. The render thread. Do not, in any set of circumstances in my book, as a small developer, mess with inside of the render thread. You could do all kinds of programming for these open, like for Unreal, for these open engines. But the second you start messing with the render thread, you're gonna find out that it's a black box. There's literally nothing coming back. There's no errors. You'll just have a game released and it'll start crashing and you won't know why. So I highly suggest that you don't mess with the render thread. Now marketing, I mentioned this before. As an indie or anybody really in this space, you need to do one-to-one at least for every dollar that you spend of your time and energy that you know there's an opportunity out there for you in terms of what your opportunity cost might be. You need to commit $1 to marketing to that. And just to touch on this, is some of the really large players in the space that I see now, they have data teams sitting there. The guys that are that are running like, serious analytics, data-driven analytics on where the players stop and what they can do. One of the things that we do offer with inside of our RDC and mobile is we offer video recordings. So if you don't have any information in your game that's basically capturing privacy information, what you can do is watch these videos, the last 3 seconds of them, find out why your players are leaving your game, where you're leaving your game. It's another way of doing that. All right. You can't fight what you can't see. One of the beautiful things about doing with Backtrace at a small level is you can start fighting trolls. I hate trolls. This is just my anti-troll comment. All right, so the future. New era of DevOps, you have like traditional testing. I mentioned the shift left, mentioned the shift right. I'm not gonna stick too much on it. Continuing testing is becoming the norm. You need tools both sides. Backtrace can help you out in the future can help you out on the shift left with games before they're released. You can do things like run automation testing, which is like Gauntlet for Unreal Engine or Alt Unity or Unity frameworks to test your game. You can start to do like AI bots. We're starting to see people use machine learning to test their games ahead of time to push errors into the system. And then on the shift right, once it's in production, your players basically are your testers. All right, I'm not gonna touch too much on this, but we basically offer a full suite. From API testing to live testing, automated test to beta test. We have frameworks, saucelabs.com. Again, Backtrace has a free dev tier, and we do it all the way through the whole process. CI/CD/Cs become the norm, which is continuous integration and continuous development. So what does success look like? So for me, it's working on what you love. Like I'm, from a solo dev perspective, maybe it's not the best thing to make a fishing game, but it's like what I did. It's actually a fly fishing game. It's where I'm from in my state. We love to fly fish. It's something I do to get in touch with nature, and something I do to get away from the computer. And I recommend that when you do projects, because you're gonna stare at it over and over and over again, that you do something you love. Because that way you're gonna be able to follow through with the 1,000th iteration that you have to touch it. And then you can fail up, right? So I've seen there's a famous GDC talk out there where a guy's talking about a card game that he built. And the first one didn't sell very well. And then he's like, oh, okay. And the second one didn't sell very well. And he's like, that's horrible. And he took a job contracting, right? But he continued to build his third one out there. And then all of a sudden he noticed when he sold his third one, his back catalog started selling. So his whole thing, and then he mailed his fourth one and his back catalog started selling great. So you don't really know what the success is gonna look like. You really you can like basically, you think you're failing, but you're not. And so my message to you for this whole thing is basically never give up. enjoy the process, have fun, be creative, and move that forward. And that's it. If you want to check out my game, it's called Fishing on the Fly. You can see it at my website, Matt Clark. I also built a robot with Unreal Engine 5. It's pretty cutting edge back in the day.